The fire pit was empty. The forest seemed too quiet. The shadows that haunted me were gone, replaced by the faint light of dawn. But the fear lingered. I shuffled to the creek, hoping the water would wash away my anxiety. As I knelt down and splashed my face, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There, in the mud, were footprints, bare footprints leading away from the water and deeper into the trees. They were human-shaped, but larger than normal. I stood up, scanning the area. My breath came quick, and I felt dizzy. I could barely process what I was seeing. Who had walked through here? Why were they barefoot? I wanted to follow the tracks, to know more, but dread coiled in my stomach. Instead, I walked back toward my tent, hoping to gather my things and escape. That's when I spotted it. A small figure hunched near the trees. I squinted, trying to make out if it was a human or some trick of the light. My heart dropped. It wasn't just a shadow. It was distinctively human. But the shape seemed wrong. It was too low to the ground, or perhaps too twisted. Before I could comprehend what I was seeing, it turned towards me. My breath caught. The face was pale and gaunt, eyes large and almost glowing against the dimness. It didn't move towards me. It just stared. I felt frozen, torn between fleeing and uncovering what this thing was. Seconds felt like hours. Then the figure whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but it had a melodic, haunting quality. Fear surged through me, and I finally turned to run. I grabbed my gear, shoving everything into my backpack as fast as I could manage. The whispers returned, echoing around me like an unseen choir. I darted out, racing toward the truck parked near the entrance of the forest. Just as I reached the trailhead, a chill swept through the air. I dared to look back, expecting to see nothing but trees. Instead, I spotted the figure again, standing still at the edge of the forest, watching me. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking as I tried to unlock the door. My heart raced with the realization that I wasn't alone. Then, everything went dark. The sun seemed to vanish, casting an unnatural shadow over the trees. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. My instincts kicked in, and without looking back, I jumped into the truck. As the engine roared to life, I peeled out of the clearing. But a part of me wondered if I was free at all. The chilling thought sent shivers down my spine. What if the whispers followed? I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the figure. The trees loomed larger behind me, concealing whatever secrets they held. I put the pedal to the metal, hoping to leave it all behind. But as the dense forest sped past, something flickered in my vision. A shadow darting between the trees. I knew then that I wasn't finished with this place, not yet. The road twisted and turned, each bend pulling me further from the forest, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still with me. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that pale face lurking just behind the tree line. But the road was empty. After a few minutes, I finally dragged my mind from the shadows of the woods and focused on the road ahead. I needed to breathe, to regroup. Maybe I was just overtired. Maybe I had imagined the whole thing. I had come out here for peace, after all. I gripped the steering wheel harder, forcing myself to think rationally. A mile down the road, I noticed a small diner, its neon sign flickering with a blue hue. I needed coffee and a moment of normalcy. The sight of familiar surroundings might push the memory of the figure out of my mind. I pulled into the gravel lot and parked, taking a moment to steady my racing heart before stepping out. The chime of the door rang out as I entered, a comforting sound that filled me momentarily with calm. The waitress, a woman with kind eyes, approached me and greeted me with a warm smile. "What can I get you, hon?" I ordered a coffee, and as I waited, I scanned the diner's walls lined with old photographs and fishing gear. It was all so ordinary. But in a corner booth, something caught my attention. A group of 3 men sat with hushed voices, their eyes darting around as if they were sharing secrets. My curiosity piqued. I strained to listen, but couldn't make out their words. When the waitress returned with my coffee, I discreetly observed the men. One of them, a stocky guy wearing a baseball cap, leaned closer and pointed outside. There was urgency in their hushed tones. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. My truck was parked right outside. As I took a sip of my coffee, I caught a glimpse of their worried expressions. The barista followed my gaze and leaned in closer. "You hear about what's been happening in the woods?" Her voice was a low whisper, full of conspiratorial intrigue. "What do you mean?" I asked, a sinking feeling settling in. She leaned even closer, her breath a mere hiss. "People have gone missing. They say it's something unnatural, something that walks barefoot." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. The memories of the footprints, the figure standing in the shadows, and the whispers flooded back into my mind. I excused myself and made my way outside, my heart racing again. As I reached my truck, a sense of dread washed over me. What if the figure had followed me after all? What if the missing people were somehow tied to it? Suddenly, I heard a rustle behind the diner. Turning slowly, I spotted something moving between the trees at the lot's edge. A flash of white. Someone, or something, was watching me. Panic surged, and I rushed back to my truck. I felt it again, the sensation of being chased. As I reached for my keys, I dared one last glance over my shoulder. The figure stood just at the tree line, pale and still. My heart thundered as I fumbled with the door. I yanked it open, jumped in, and locked the doors. The engine roared to life as I peeled out onto the highway, leaving the diner and its shadows behind me. But as I sped away, I couldn't shake the thought. Who was that figure, and why didn't it follow me? I drove for what felt like hours, the landscape blurring by in a whirlwind of greens and browns. The weight of my thoughts pressed down on me. Each shadow that darted across my periphery made me flinch. I kept replaying the waitress's words in my mind. Missing people, something unnatural. Was it all connected? My hands were clammy, and I rubbed them dry on my jeans. I needed to get home, but driving wasn't helping clear my mind. I pulled over at a rest stop, the need to stretch my legs overpowering the anxiety swirling inside me. The stop was mostly deserted, a concrete island surrounded by trees. I got out, hoping the fresh air would calm my nerves. I paced the lot, glancing at the trees that lined the edge. They loomed like spectators at a grim theater, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. That's when I saw it, something shiny half buried in the dirt near a trash can. I hesitated, my instinct screaming at me to ignore it, but curiosity won out. I approached cautiously and knelt down to get a better look. As I dug it out, my heart sank. It was a small pendant, the kind someone might wear around their neck. The chain was broken, and the metal was cool and dull from being in the dirt for who knows how long. The pendant itself showed an engraving of a tree, oddly familiar in its twisted branches. I remembered then, it looked like the one I had seen in the woods earlier that day. I pocketed it quickly, a sense of urgency bubbling in my chest. I turned to leave, but that's when I heard it. A faint rustling came from the tree line, followed by a low growl. My heart stopped. I turned slowly, dread flowing through my veins. There, just beyond the trees, shadows shifted. The pale figure from the diner flickered in my mind, the figure I had left behind. My instinct screamed at me to run, but the growl morphed into something else. A low whisper creeping toward me, weaving through the trees like fingers grasping for my sanity. I stumbled back, my breath quickening. In my racing heart, a question loomed larger than all the rest. What was out there? And was it really the same entity that haunted me in the woods? Then everything turned chaotic. A flurry of movement erupted from the underbrush, and I caught a glimpse of something pale. It darted forward, not from the jungle, but from the rest stop itself. My body leapt into action as my mind screamed, "Get away!" I sprinted back to my truck, flinging the door open and jumping inside. My mind was racing as I shoved the key in the ignition. I glanced in the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of that figure. To my relief, there was nothing. But as I took off, I knew better than to think it was over. Someone, something was watching me, and the woods had secrets I still had yet to uncover. In that moment, I realized I had to go back. I didn't know what I would find, but I couldn't leave without answers. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when I made my way back to the woods. I took a deep breath, my mind racing with what I might discover. Had I really thought I could leave all of this behind? I parked my truck on the side of the road, just a few yards from the forest entrance. The silence hung heavy in the air. Every rustle of leaves set my heart pounding. I didn't want to be here, but the pendant in my pocket felt like a tether pulling me forward. I stepped onto the dirt path, feeling the chill of the morning wrap around me like a warning. The trees loomed above, each shadow a reminder of what had happened yesterday. The pendant weighed heavier the deeper I ventured, its cool metal sending tingles through my skin. It was as if the forest knew I was back, aware of my intentions. As I navigated the familiar trail, a glance over my shoulder made my stomach drop. I could have sworn I saw a flash of white amongst the trees. No, I must be imagining things. I pressed on, my breath catching with each step I took. Just ahead, where the path forked sharply, I spotted a wooden sign, its paint peeling and faded. "Beware," it read. "The woods are not what they seem." My skin prickled at the words. I couldn't help but feel I was being drawn into something much larger. I chose the path to the right and continued. The air felt thicker, almost electric. Then I saw it, a clearing just ahead, bathed in soft light. I stepped inside, my heart racing. This space felt different, as if time itself was sluggish here. That's when I noticed something on the ground, footprints. I knelt to examine them. They were unlike any animal tracks I recognized. They had an irregular shape, almost like a child's small handprint. The prints were leading deeper into the woods, each one overlapping the last, like they were in a hurry to flee. My instinct was to call out, but the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I let the pendant guide me forward. I felt a pull, a strange compulsion to follow those prints. I took a deep breath, trembling with fear and curiosity alike, and pushed forward. As I continued, I heard a rustle behind me again, this time more distinct. I turned, adrenaline spiking, but my eyes found nothing. Only the whispering branches and a flicker of motion somewhere behind a thick grove of trees. It was too quick to catch a glimpse, but I knew I wasn't alone. I picked up my pace, weaving between the trees, scanning the area around me. Each snap of a twig made me jump, and the ambiance shifted, darker, heavier. I could feel it. Whatever was out here had been waiting. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement again. I stopped dead.
Before I was pulled too deeply into the unknown.
The child I had followed appeared behind them, its face still obscured. It pointed towards a pile of stones where something unseen shimmered. Just for a moment, I felt the pull of the pendant, a connection to this eerie gathering. "You'll find what you seek if you stay," the melodic voice coaxed. "The secrets of the woods will be revealed." I wanted to scream, to reject the invitation, but something deep within me stirred. Fear and curiosity tangled in a dangerous dance. I had come here searching for answers, hadn't I? Then my thoughts spiraled as my mind raced through the figure's warnings. I remembered the warning about not lingering and the dangers waiting in the twilight. It was like a feeling of being sucked into a whirlpool, pulling me closer with every heartbeat. That's when I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The shadows among the trees thickened, creeping closer. The figure's eyes became frantic for my decision. I felt the heat of their stares on my skin. The laughter around the fire smothered, morphing into an unsettling crescendo that echoed off the trees. Before I could reconsider, I whirled around, ready to run. But the darkness behind me swallowed my path. It wasn't just a forest anymore. It was a prison of shadows threatening to trap me. And suddenly, right behind me, I heard the whisper of a voice, icy and unnerving. "You can't escape now." I pivoted back, heart racing, searching for a way out among the shadowed trees. The voice behind me wasn't just a whisper. It was close, too close. A cold breeze rustled the leaves, carrying a laugh that sounded much too familiar. "Stay with us," the figures around the fire echoed, their plea weaving into the wind. I could feel their eyes boring into me, waiting for my reply. But I couldn't shake the urge to flee. The panic surged through me like an electric shock, propelling my legs into motion. Just as I started to sprint into the thick brush, the child's figure darted in front of me, suddenly blocking my path. The obscured face revealed nothing, but the empty gaze seemed to penetrate my very being. "The way is sealed," it said, in that unnaturally sweet voice, and the ground beneath my feet trembled. I stumbled backward, my senses heightened. The world around me twisted again, and the whispers morphed into a chaotic symphony of voices. They called my name, begged me to stay, but I could feel the walls closing in. I had to escape. Behind me, the fire flickered violently, as if responding to my fear. Without thinking, I pushed past the child. The moment my shoulder collided with its small frame, a jolt ran through me, a surge of warmth that felt oddly comforting. But there was no time to process it. I bolted into the trees. Branches snagged at my clothes and skin, tearing through my awareness of pain as I pushed deeper into the forest. The shadows chased me, dancing mockingly at the corners of my vision. Every step felt like diving further into the depths of a darkness that was alive and grasping. I gasped for air, adrenaline flooding my system, urging me onward. Somewhere ahead, I saw a glimmer, not unlike the glow from the figures. I sprinted toward it. My breath came in ragged gasps, echoing against the silence. As I neared, the light resolved into the familiar shape of a small cottage, aged and twisted like the surrounding trees. It was unexpected, a beacon amidst the chaos. I reached the door and hesitated. Should I enter? Would it be safer inside? I glanced over my shoulder. No one was there, but I could still feel those disembodied eyes tracking me. It was a moment of clarity amid the noise. Perhaps this structure held the answers I was searching for, or at least a shield against whatever darkness lurked in the woods. I pushed open the door, wincing as it creaked ominously. Inside, it was almost pitch black, save for a faint glimmer coming from an old lantern in the corner. I stepped inside cautiously, sensing that perhaps this was a different kind of trap. Then, as I turned to shut the door behind me, I felt a cold breath against my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. "You shouldn't have come here," the child's voice echoed softly, and everything went silent. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I spun around, but there was no one there. The lantern flickered more fiercely, and as I approached it, I saw what lay beneath the glass. Tattered letters scattered across the floor, inked in dark, swirling script that seemed alive. I reached down to gather one, but the instant my fingers brushed the paper, a roar erupted outside, deafening and guttural. I froze, heart thundering. Something or someone was out there, and it was coming for me. I was enveloped in an icy grip of fear as the roar echoed through the cottage and rattled the very bones of the structure. The walls trembled, the lantern flickered sporadically, casting an eerie dance of shadows around the room, and my heart raced faster than ever. I searched for an escape, my mind scrambling for a plan. Retreating to the back window, I pushed the dusty curtains aside, only to be met with the darkness of the forest pressing in around me. I couldn't see nothing through the dense thicket, but I could hear it.
The rustling, the whispers, all beckoning me back into the woods. They seemed almost alive, pulling at the edges of my sanity. Suddenly, the sound of splintering wood drew my attention back to the door. It was nearly torn from its hinges by the force of something ominous outside. My breath caught in my throat as I instinctively braced myself against the wall, my heart hammering in my chest. In that taut moment, the door burst open, and before me stood a figure cloaked in shadows, its face obscured by darkness, the air noxious with a sense of dread. I couldn't tell if it was human or something else entirely. "Why have you come here?"
It rasped, the voice blending with the whispers that danced like smoke in the air around us. A surge of defiance coursed through me. "I'm looking for answers," I found my voice, though it trembled. "I don't understand what's happening. I want to get out of this forest." The figure stepped forward, and the light from the lantern illuminated its face. A pale, gaunt visage, unnaturally elongated, glimmering eyes locking on to mine. Somehow it felt wrong, like a mirror turned sideways, reflecting a version of reality that was inescapably skewed. "Answers come at a price," it hissed, tilting its head in a way that sent a chill down my spine. "You have the pendant, and those who wear it must confront what lies beneath the surface. It is a burden and a blessing. You've already crossed a threshold." The ground beneath me seemed to vibrate with those words, and I could feel the very essence of the forest pushing against my skin, like 1,000 eyes staring at me, judging me. "What do you mean? What can it reveal?" I stammered, yearning for clarity, even as panic fought to cloud my mind. But the figure showed no signs of answering. It merely took a step forward, and everything around me began to tremble. The cottage felt alive, an entity woven into the fabric of the dark woods outside. Shadows began to swirl around, creeping closer, and a disembodied whisper rose and fell, a sound both inviting and terrifying. But the figure showed no signs of answering. It merely took a step forward, and everything around me began to tremble. The cottage felt alive, an entity woven into the fabric of the dark woods outside. Shadows began to swirl around, creeping closer, and a disembodied whisper rose and fell, a sound both inviting and terrifying. "Join us," came the voice of the pale child, soft yet persistent. "You cannot escape your fate here. You've been chosen." I stumbled backward, trying to find an exit, but the whispers grew louder, drowning out my thoughts. I felt the pull of the pendant, an energy thrumming through my body like a live wire. I needed to fight back, to break free of the phantoms clinging to my mind. Emboldened by desperation, I shouted back into the shadows, "No! I'm done being led by you! I want to leave!" In that moment, a powerful wind howled through the cottage. The lantern flickered violently, casting shadows that danced like flames. The figures outside sighed in unison, their wicked shadows thinning momentarily, as if I had cut through their hold. But the relief was fleeting. The figure before me vanished instantaneously, melting back into the shadow it had emerged from. The door slammed shut,
forcefully this time, rattling the windows as a chorus of laughter filled the air. Whatever it was had retreated for now, but I could feel the malevolence lingering just beyond the thin wooden walls. Without thinking, I lunged for the window, desperate for a view of the outside world that seemed so far removed from the darkness that engulfed me. As I scanned the forest, I caught a glimmer of pale skin darting between the shadows, the child from before. It felt like a beacon in the chaos. "Help me!" I shouted, hoping that my voice would reach it, that it would guide me back to safety. But the laughter faded, replaced by a haunting silence.